do we worship God? Because a lot of times, I think we have a misunderstanding of what worship actually is. For most Christians today, if you were to ask them what is worship, they would describe to you what happens once a week at church when they gather together. The time of singing, the time of praising, that's worship for a majority of Christians today. I want to tell you, that is not what the Bible describes as worship. This 30 minutes or 40 minutes that we spend together on Sunday does not constitute as worship in a Christian's life. It's a part of worship, but it is not fully worship. Because worship was never meant to be limited to one day or 1 hour or half hour of a week. Worship was meant to be a lifestyle for you and me. Worship was supposed to be something that we live and breathe on a daily basis. Sometimes we see it topsy-turvy. We see worship as something we do once a week that will sustain us through the rest of the week. But actually, how God meant it was to have worship as a lifestyle every day where you have learned to worship God on a daily basis, and out of the overflowing of an everyday walk with God, you come in to the corporate worship and you have the grandest celebration. But we see the corporate worship as a substitute for personal worship. That's not how it works. For all of us, this is something that God desires, worship. God desires worship from us because He is the only one who's worthy of worship. And worship needs to become a daily part of our life. And worship is not limited only to singing. Just because we sing does not mean it's worship. It's part of worship. Worship is so much beyond that. Meaning every time you open your mouth and begin to just lift up God in your life. Just talk about His goodness, His greatness, what He has done in your life. Every time in your personal life, the moment you begin to ascribe to God what He has done, that is worship. And every child of God needs to have a personal time in their everyday where it's separated for worshiping God. It's not just listening to some songs. It is to actually allow worship to be birthed in us that begins to flow from our deep man, the spiritual man, and go to God. That's our worship and honor to God. Do we worship Him in our personal life?